By 2006, the WWE's women's division was slowly feeling the effects of so many departures. The division was not half, but a quarter wrestling, and the other 75% was, hey, I'm fine as hell. Did anyone have a problem with that at the time? Not many, especially when compared to the late 2000s and early 10s. Talents such as Gail Kim and Molly Holly were gone, while others like Victoria were still around. Their impact wasn't really felt all that much. The only two that had the same standing as they did in the early 2000s were Trish Stratus and Lita. While Trish Stratus was in the very same position as she was earlier, Lita wasn't. After suffering a torn ACL, Lita was left sidelined for a long time. She did appear on TV though, but as the manager to Edge. This played into the real-life relationship of Matt Hardy and Edge. It was a very dark time for Lita, and in addition, every week someone would call her a hoe, say she had gonorrhea, and John Cena in particular laid into her like nobody else ever did. Cena's out there roasting somebody like Kurt Angle, and from out of nowhere he's like, Lita's a slut. At the same time, nobody expected Lita to play such a good heel. She was the final piece to Edge's main event journey, and sure, he would have won the title without her, but he was never going to be the rated R superstar, the guy that was probably the best wrestler of 2006. Lita's in-ring appearances were very occasional. As a matter of fact, her first match since New Year's Revolution 2005 was in January of 2006, a full year later. She didn't have her own feuds for the most part and would always get involved with Edge's matches. Of course, this being the 2000s, it always ends with her taking an angle slammer and FU. It also felt like she would easily dominate in the women's division because at one point it was literally just Trish Stratus. That would of course change. On the August 14th, 2006 episode of Raw, Lita challenged Mickie James for the Women's Championship. Lita got the jobber entrance, but that's a different story. The challenger gave the champion a whooping. Edge was playing mascot on the outside, and JR's pissed about the John Cena incident. Mickie makes a comeback, nice head scissors, and she had enough momentum, but Edge interfered. Lita blasts her with a title and goes for the cover to win it. So now Lita was the new women's champion, the first time in about 2 years that she won the title, and it was actually one of her first matches back. She had only competed in like 3 other matches prior to this. Title reign number 3. Trish Stratus, meanwhile, was on the way out. Rumors circulated in the summer of Trish's status following SummerSlam, and it was clear that she was going to go away, but nobody knew how and when. She was getting married, but information was unknown at the time. This was confirmed on WWE.com on August 28, 2006, and later that night, Carlito questioned her about this, and she wasn't fond of Lita leaking the news. Later that night, the She-Devil Wears Prada, as JR called her, defended the gold in a rematch. This one was again rushed. Lita quickly took control. She's throwing Mickie around before she makes the comeback, and it got to the point where she brought in the belt. This moment benefited Lita greatly, and she ended up dropping Mickie James with a powerbomb before using the ropes for leverage. Of course, Lita and Trish ended up crossing paths later on. Trish was about to go out there and call out Lita, but that wasn't needed. She challenged her to a match for the title at Unforgiven. Lita thought, hey, this is great. Why? Because she could beat Trish in her last match in her hometown and send her running. Stratus told her to just bring it and received a mean-ass slap. Like, damn, that was meaner than it looks over here. Then a brawl ensues involving Carlito and Orton ahead of the 6-man tag later that night. That match ended up being terrible for Trish, who took an RKO from Randy Orton, who had zero regard. The match in Toronto had this special spark to it, no doubt about it. For Trish, it was a final homecoming. 6 years in the business, and for the WWE, she was easily the biggest star in the division. This match not only closed the chapter, or in this case book, of Trish's career, but also the rivalry itself. This was also, in my personal opinion, easily Lita's best match in WWE. It had the story, the action, and of course the atmosphere. Toronto was very giving on this night to Trish Stratus. Lita was less risky than Trish in the beginning and relied on basic stuff like hair pulls and headlocks. The challenger's wide array of moves were doing her no favor at this point. Now, it wasn't like Lita didn't go for high risk, it just didn't haul her momentum like he usually did for Trish. The challenger had a hard time of suppressing the damage compared to Lita, and it looked gloomy. The fans were slowly getting behind Trish to the point where she fought back. She hit the chick kick, but it wasn't enough, so she countered Lita's pin attempt into a sharpshooter, and since this was Canada, this was easily the loudest the crowd was at this point in the show. Trish looked like she was going to split Lita's back with it, and she tapped. So in her final match, Trish Stratus captured the WWE Women's Championship for the 7th time, and it was a storybook ending. Amazing moment, huge moment in the women's division in general, and for the division, let's just say it didn't get better from here on. With Trish Stratus away, the women's championship was vacant. To make matters worse for Lita, she lost to Candice Michelle with the help of Mickie James. This feud would continue to escalate over the next couple of weeks, but as for the women's title, the first round tournament match between Lita and Candice Michelle was marred in controversy. First of all, the match was in the dark. Why? There was some pyro or electrical issue at the time. Jonathan Coachman allowed Lita to choose the referee, and it ended up being Edge. Right when the bell rang, he dropped Candice with a spear and handed the victory to Lita before John Cena came on. They trashed each other in a promo. Lita in particular took the hardest burns, as Cena said that Lita had a terrible defense and she allows a lot of balls in her end zone. He's like, oh, 11 guys try to score at once. Oh, man. He's out here talking about diseases, and she's like, screw you. So Cena responds saying, I don't have $10. Lita began talking about how she's a human being and said that not only Edge is a better wrestler than Cena, she is too. He said that she is better if he was blind, had one hand tied behind his back, and caught herpes. Now, Edge was Edge. He didn't want to face Cena, but asked Lita to. You know how this ended. Marine John Cena in the ring, and not only that, but one hand tied behind his back would still beat half the roster. Yet this FU where he just flipped Lita over and sent her flying. Okay, Lita's inclusion in the Divas division was minimal until the October 30th, 2006 episode of Raw. The women's tournament was nearing its conclusion. Mickie James made it to the final, whereas Lita still had to face Maria. I don't think there was any doubt for this one. Her inexperience played a part in her losing, and Lita just hit this mean-ass DDT to win a spot at Cyber Sunday against a rival. Lita told her that she's the next champion, and about this one, the match was a lumberjill match. Each woman got a taste of a beatdown on the outside, and it was Lita who found form first. It was the usual offense, throwing her on the mat, into the corner, this and that, corner choke, and at one point she locked James in a sleeper hold, and they were trying to put in the effort, but the crowd wasn't really into it. Mickie begins her comeback, she somewhat messes up a move, and a brawl ensues. She then goes for the DDT, but it looked weird as well. Then Candice gets involved to prevent Lita from cheating, and after a distraction from the heels, Mickie took the DDT, and Lita became the women's champion. Match. There are some nice spots here and there, but in general, it's forgettable. The next night on Raw, Mickie James received a rematch for that title. With Eric Bischoff running the show, he gave Lita the right to choose any match. So she made Mickie James tie one hand behind her back. With that, James's stats were nerfed over 20 overalls, and Lita was playing on easy mode, and even then, James was doing stuff. It didn't really last long though, and Lita dropped her with a DDT to retain the title. Shortly afterwards, the match was made for Survivor Series. Lita versus Mickie James for the Women's Championship. Unfortunately for the champ, her time in Manchester wasn't pleasant. She once again had a stipulation for Mickie James: her legs tied up. The challenger told her that after she wins at Survivor Series, Lita's gonna be the one that needs her legs tied up. DX and the crowd were calling her a hoe as well and messing around. She provoked them, and Triple H sprayed her with mustard before James hit her with a sausage and went for the DDT for the win. The following week, Mickie James had to wrestle blindfolded. You know how it ends. The fact that she actually took a moonsault though was a bit cringe, because she's blindfolded. After the match, Lita said that this was an example of her being the most dominant woman. She held resentment over DX and John Cena disrespecting her, but she was angrier at the crowd. Lita reminded everyone of who she was. She was the person that changed everything in the women's division, and before, they were eye candy, but she inspired a generation of women. Without her, there would be no Mickie James, no Trish Stratus, and because she was so frustrated with the fans, she said that she's going to walk into Survivor Series, beat Mickie James, and walk away. Lita announced that Survivor Series was her last match and promised to retire the greatest women's champion of all time. Okay, this is one of the most underrated promos I've ever saw. Lita's explanation of her impact on the women's division was facts, 100%. She played a part in changing everything, and if anything, she probably had the biggest impact. Before her, no woman main evented Raw. She did it twice technically. One time was in the height of the Attitude Era, and her bitterness comes from the fans being ignorant of her time before Edge, or they just refuse to acknowledge it. And watching it now, it's kind of sad because you can see that she truly meant every word in that promo, but not many cared. At the time, things were different. The crowd gave her no respect and dignity, and ever since the Edge incident, it was downhill. Todd Grisham asked her if she changed her mind, and it was clear that she didn't, and if anything, was proud. Edge said that Mickie James was going to go down faster than Donovan McNabb. Damn. He's talking, and Crime Time decided to enter her room and steal some stuff. Todd Grisham was so damn confused at this point, and about the match, it was a bit better than Cyber Sunday. She's doing work, and the crowd's like she's a crack whore. Last match, the Philadelphia crowd showed zero positivity. Damn. Lita dominated the match and isolated James, but the crowd wasn't having it. Mickie, though, had the entire crowd behind her and delivered a beautiful combo, and the match starts kicking up. Lita hits the moonsault, but it's not enough. Then she goes to the DDT unsuccessfully, and to top it all off, Mickie hits the very same move to win the title. Good stuff. It was better than I remember it being. The crowd was a bit into it. Mickie's offense was nice, and for Lita's final match, decent. Afterwards, she called for Lillian Garcia to introduce her as the greatest women's champion, and the fans booed. She got all emotional about how she does it for the fans and said that there's not a better crowd to leave to. She's trashing them. All of a sudden, Crime Time came out with a box full of her stuff and said that they're going to have a wholesale vibrator, yeast infection stuff. What the hell is going on? And this crowd was down bad, but JBL's a different story. This man was down horrendous. He said that he's the only man in America that doesn't have her panties, and he wanted to see what's up with them. Crime Time ended up hustling him, and this in itself is a prime example, a prime difference of two farewells. Trish Stratus received the most grace and heartwarming exit probably of the entire 2000s, while Lita probably had the worst. And the thing is, both women had a huge impact on the division, and it wasn't like Lita's impact was negative. I guess it came down to Lita getting her comeuppance. You know, she's out here with Edge, this and that. Fans boo her, they call her a hoe, and having her go out there in embarrassment and jokes made sense. Should that have happened? No, I don't think so. Because at the end of the day, the Edge stuff was just a part of her career, and I don't think it's right to have her career end with the final image relating to her items getting sold. Primetime is always were entertaining. It makes sense in storyline because of how things went down with her and Edge and Matt Hardy, but nah, it shouldn't have. On MySpace that week, Lita on her final match said, and I quote, "So to say I was disappointed with my final moments with WWE is quite an understatement. It was comforting to read all your comments and emails when I got home, and I appreciate that you were able to see that I did my best in the situation that was handed to me to give you guys an entertaining match and play along and be a professional with the other stuff that went along with my big farewell night." She also spoke about it in detail on the Chris Van Vliet show earlier this year, and I quote, "I mean, I was happy to work with Mickie James," Lita said, "but in my mind it was a good long match and we hug at the end of it, and here's the title. I see that it's in good hands and I'm out of here, you know? It just hurt my feelings and I was very vocal about it. I went to my producer that day, I went to the head writer, I went to Vince, and I went back to my producer. I went back to the writer, back to Vince, being like, is there any way we can not do this? Can we just do this at a pre-tape later? Like, can I just have this match?" And the answer was, "You're a heel. This is what we're doing. You're losing." And they're like, "You're looking at it wrong. It's business. You're a heel. That's what needs to happen." I remember saying, "All right, well, that's the last time you get to pull my strings. I guess you're pulling them hard. I'll go out there and I'll do business because I'm a professional, but I want you to know this hurts my feelings. I know this is business you're telling me, which doesn't involve feelings, but I want you to know as somebody who broke my neck for the business and for who has given everything, and this hurts my feelings." It's one of those things that was always so hard. I would get asked about it either by fans or in interviews, and it was hard. You're not trying to air your dirty laundry, go on these rants, or actively carry negative energy with you, right? But it wasn't a thing where I could come up with something like a way to spin it. Like, it's great, it's hilarious. I was just like, yeah, it's a bummer. And they'd keep talking about it, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna pile, but I hear you. At the time, it was reported that TNA had interest in bringing in Lita, and some believed that because of the light schedule, there would be a chance. And the division at the time was heating up, but it never materialized. Having her as the face of the Knockouts division probably would have brought some attention, but it wasn't to be. Her next appearance in WWE came on the 15th anniversary Raw episode in December of 2007. Trish Stratus confronted Jillian, and when Lita came out, she received a great reception from the crowd. The tension was still there between the two, but Jillian was so annoying that they teamed up, and I guess it was all good from both sides. Okay, so that's Lita's final days in WWE. Personally, I enjoyed watching her heel character away from Edge. I think there was a lot to be explored there, but she had enough. Her departure caused a huge black hole, a huge blow to the women's division at the time. It wasn't really that interesting, and adding this to it, the departure of Lita after Trish Stratus left, was bad. It was terrible. But as I said, I liked her heel character at the time. You know, she was away from Edge. She's doing her own thing, this and that. And maybe something should have gone out of it, but it is what it is. Alright, what do you guys think of Lita's final run? Please comment down below. And that's it for this video. Make sure you hit the moonsault on the like button, and perhaps the twist of fate on the subscribe button. Peace. I'm out.